Hello students, I am Anshu Sharma and I am going to teach you third lesson of your history from NCERT textbook Ruling the Countryside. Lagan. Once upon a time in India. Oh, don't worry, I'm not going to tell you the story of this critically acclaimed movie Lagan. Then why this slide? Wait, do you remember what was the theme of this movie? In this movie, we saw the problems of Indian farmers who were unable to pay tax due to adverse weather conditions to the British. They were challenged to play cricket match to waive off the tax, and the rest of the story you all are aware of. So, in this chapter, we will study about land revenue system under British India. You will learn who got duty to collect tax, what was the condition of our farmers, and how they reacted when they were forced to pay revenue, and what happened with indigo planters. Let's start the chapter. British East India Company got Diwani right in 1765 by Mughal Emperor Shah Alam II. In the last chapter of history, we have studied how British defeated Indian rulers in Battle of Buxar. And in compensation, they were forced to sign Allahabad Treaty. As per this treaty, British got right to collect revenue from Bengal, Bihar, Orissa, and this was called Diwani right. In the beginning, company did not interfere in the administrative structure of rural India and was just interested in collecting money. So it need not to bring gold and silver from Britain to buy cotton, silk and other raw materials from India. Children, you must be aware of that land revenue was the most important source of income for the state's coffer. In such condition, when no one was interested in well-being of farmers and whole money was going in the pockets of British company, what supposed to be the condition of Bengal? Economy of Bengal started declining. Artisans lost the support of rulers and they were forced to sell their goods to company in low price. Peasants were unable to pay rent. Bengal, a state which was prosperous before British period, now was unable to feed its own people. And in 1770s famine, almost 10 million people died. This was an eye-opener for British. Now they started thinking about land improvement. Under this, three different land revenue policies were introduced by British in different areas of India, one by one. These land revenue policies were permanent settlement, Rayatwari system and Mahalwari system. Let's start studying all these settlements one by one. Let's start with the first land revenue system called permanent settlement. It was introduced by Governor General Cornwallis in 1793. Under this, there was a mediator between farmer and British, and it was Jamidar. Who was Jamidar? Actually, these Jamidars were native Indian who were treated like landowners. It was introduced in Bengal, Bihar, Orissa, and Banaras. As the name suggests, revenue was fixed permanently and it was not to be revised ever in future. British thought that at least they would get minimum revenue regularly and on the other hand will motivate Jamidar to improve crop production as extra amount was going to Jamidars. But it wasn't as good as it seemed. Revenue was fixed so high, Jamidars and farmers both faced problem in paying it. If Jamidars were unable to pay revenue, on the fixed day their Jamidari rights were auctioned. and given to the next highest bidder. So, in such condition, Jamidars were not interested in investing in improvement of land. Even British were not happy. During 19th century, there was price rise and expansion in cultivation. The income of Jamidar increased, but it did not result in any gain for the company because its revenue was already fixed. Same with farmer. They had no right on the land. If farmer was unable to pay the revenue, he was evicted from his land. To save his land, he was taking loan from moneylender, and in this way he was trapped in never-ending loan cycle. Now British came out with another land revenue settlement. That was Mahalwadi system. It was introduced by Holt Mackenzie. Mackenzie was convinced about the importance of village in the North Indian society. A village was known as Mahal. In this system, land was divided into Mahal, which include one or more villages, and revenue was collected by village headmen from farmers. This settlement was not permanent and it was made for 30 years. It covered the state of Punjab, Awadh and Madhya Pradesh. But this system can be called modified Jamidari system because village headmen had taken the place of Jamidar and the amount payable by the cultivator was still very high. Here comes third settlement introduced by British. This time, there was no mediator like Jamidar or headman. Revenue was directly collected from farmers. And that system was called Rayatwadi system or Munro system. This Rayatwadi system was introduced by Captain Alexander Reed and Thomas Munro in South India. There was no traditional Jamidar in South, so the settlement had to be directly made with the cultivator and they were called Rayats. Rayats had right on the land, but the problem continued. As land revenue was fixed so high that farmers were unable to pay. Farmers left village, they left farming and they came to cities for better opportunities. Crops for Europe. British realized that India is the best place to expand the cultivation of crops that they needed, like opium, indigo, tea, sugarcane, jute, and wheat. Now we will study about story of indigo production in India. There was high demand of indigo in European market because it produced rich blue color that was used to dye cloth. In comparison with wood that produced dull blue color. India was the biggest supplier of indigo in the world in 19th century. Indigo production was a profitable business. That time, even the company official left their job to look after their indigo business. By 1810, 95% of indigo imported into Britain was from India. The company in India expanded the area under the indigo cultivation to meet the rising demand for indigo in Europe. There was two main systems of indigo cultivation. First, niche system and the second was Ryothi system. What was niche cultivation? Let's see. Under niche cultivation, planters bought land or taken it on rent from other zamindars and hired workers to produce indigo on the land. But some problems were involved in such niche cultivation. The first one, land was not available as indigo needed fertile land, or that fertile land was owned by all farmers and it was really difficult to move them away. And planters needed large number of workers to work on the farm. But in the same season, workers used to be busy in rice cultivation. So, availability of workers and land Both were difficult for planters. And now see how Rayoti system was different from Nij. Under Rayoti system, planters were forcing farmers or the village headman to sign contract. As per this, they had to grow indigo on 25% of their land. Farmer used to get cash in advance in very low rate of interest. Seeds and drill from planters were also provided. After harvest, crop was delivered to planter and the new loan was given to farmer. But all these were not so easy for farmers. Let's see his side also. He used to get very low price for indigo, so he was unable to pay the loan he got from planters. Second, indigo to be produced on best soil that farmer needed to grow rice on it. And once land used for indigo could not be used for another crop for the next season, as indigo plant had deep root and it exhausted the fertility of the soil. Let's see the steps involved in Rayoti cultivation. First step we have when contractor got cash from planter in advance. Planter provide the seed and the drill. Cultivators prepared the soil, sowed the seed and looked after the crop. Then the crop was delivered to the planter after the harvest, and again farmer got the advance for next indigo crop. Farmers were unhappy and not interested, but planters were forcing them to grow indigo. Now, what was the option left with farmers? Revolt. This revolt was known as the Blue Rebellion in Indian history. In March 1859, thousands of ryots of Bengal, they refused to grow indigo. They were frustrated with the policies and action of indigo planters and their lathials, as the payment they offered to the ryots did no good to them, and they couldn't grow rice after cultivating indigo on the same land that we have just discussed. The ryots took to arms and refused to grow indigo. The agents of the planters were beaten up. The ryots refused to pay the rent. Few local jamidars came to support these poor ryots, and soon the rebellion spread to the nearby areas. Women too came in support with their pots, panta and kitchen implements. When the British government heard the news, they were worried of another popular revolt. They were yet to recover from the shock of 1857 episode. To avoid another revolt, Magistrate Ashley Eden issued a notice not to compel farmers to grow indigo. Even Queen Victoria declared that indigo need not to be sown if farmers are not agree. An indigo commission was set up in 1860 and it held the planters guilty. With this, the misery of riots, the tyranny of planters, and horror of indigo system ended from Bengal. After the Blue Rebellion, indigo production in Bengal declined. But now these planters shifted to Bihar for indigo cultivation. And in 1917, our father of India, Mahatma Gandhi, visited Champaran in Bihar and, moved by the plight of riots, initiated Champaran movement against the indigo planters. So, in this chapter, we studied about three different land revenue settlements introduced by British government: permanent settlement, Mahalwadi system, and Rayatwadi system. And second topic that we have covered was Blue Rebellion. We saw how all these farmers came together against the oppressive system of planter, and at last they succeeded. With this, our chapter ends here. Thank you.